I realize the irony of being like, no one brings up Dumptruck when you're talking about Jangle Pop, and I'm just dominating the conversation with REM stuff. So
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Hey, my name's John. His name is Andy.
hello.
Here comes the rain again, falling on my head like a memory, falling on my head like a new emotion. More of that later. But first, we have a chat to listen to. And because it's Friday, yes, it is, we have got a track from one of our wonderful viewers to listen to. Um, so, the viewer in question is Bradley Stone 9362.
One.
More of a postcode than a person. And they dropped a comment on an episode, Dumptruck, Back Where I Belong, and suggested another Dumptruck track. It's what I'm familiar with, so surprise, surprise. Andy's going to listen to this one. And the track is Winter.
Winter.
So, more Dumptruck.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I dug their sound. It was very. It's always good to hear other bands from that jangle pop sort of 80s college rocky
Yeah,
genre,
yeah, yeah.
because like I was so young when all that was going about, and outside of REM I really haven't heard anything now, thanks to the channel and you and some of the listeners out there. We've had Let's Active, which was an interesting listen and kind of like a little anecdotal history lesson as it correlated with REM and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that first glimpse into Dump Truck with was it is it Back Where is the other
Back
track that
Where
we
I
did?
Belong.
Oh, Back Where I Belong, right. So yeah, I'm stoked to hear more from these guys and more from this genre. So I appreciate the shout by Bradley Stone. Let me go off and give this thing a spin, and I'll come back and let you all know what I think. Lovely bass.
The snowfall.
I'm really loving the kind of picked through, seemingly semi-flange affected guitar that's going on there. Kind of creates this circular feel to the track and the movement thereof. And then you've got these nice bits of like bass notes that are making their way. I think there was some touches on the cymbal, unless my mind just made that up, but I think I heard that. Let's kind of take that back to one, confirm that I'm right about the little touches of cymbal, and just to relive it because it was really pretty and clear sounding. There, touch a cymbal.
The snow falls heavily and forms a white blanket on the ground,
Sounds like winter to me.
only to be invaded by footsteps. The temperature warms to change the state of the snow.
Cymbals again. Higher bass work.
Turning the blanket into a river.
Mm. Okay. That was nice, that chorus that kind of like had a proper beat to it, kind of, got bigger. The sounds did, right? And when they did, that's really when, and it's not to say that the more subtle verse didn't have shades of this as well, but man, when that chorus kicked in, it really reminded me again of our conversation about these guys in the past, and this sort of, for better or worse, this correlation that one, naturally makes to REM, and that subgenre that they really dominated, right? That kind of jangle pop 80s college rock scene. This sound is a perfect example of that. So yeah, definitely picking up shades of that. Also, it sounds like it's getting warmer, because I think he said where the snow once laid is now turned to rivers or something to that effect, and the temperature is getting warmer. Interesting stuff. Beautiful, bright sound. I love the way the guitars are working together in this one. It sounds really, really pretty. And also, the rhythm section, great. The drums aren't blowing my mind, but they're really tasteful, the way they're deployed. And the bass work is, it starts off kind of understated, but then as it grows throughout the song and it gets higher on the neck, it actually adds a really interesting bit of sound to it, almost melodious to the track. Like these two guitars, really pretty.
Nothing in man's power can prevent this from happening. Not all the technology minds and research.
These synth sustained or keyboards.
Can destroy everything in existence under the pretense of saving freedom.
Wow, man can destroy everything in existence for the pretense, I think, of freedom or something to that effect. Interesting line, and I couldn't agree more. Oh, it's really pretty. Before that, it sounds like it's going to go back into a chorus again right after that sort of post-chorusy bit. And I gotta say, man, this is the second time, and this time they did it even more, which is why I'm pausing to say this. The way the guitars work in that post-chorus bit, it just reminds me of like a double helix of like DNA strands, and they're like intertwined with each other, and they sound perfect together. That they seemingly belong together as a tandem, the way they work and sound and kind of bounce off of each other. So I want to take that back and kind of listen to that once more before we get treated to what it sounds like will be another chorus. Yeah. Yeah, that was lovely. I really love the dynamics between those two guitars and the more subtle nature of the verses versus that upbeat and moving chorus, and then the way that transitions into that post chorus where again those two guitars really shine, which isn't to say they don't in all of the parts of the song, where I think it's probably highlighted best, or that portion of the song is the best exemplar to like illustrate how well the guitars work. Really fond of the bass work in this, and you know the subtle, judicious nature of the way the drums are played. I think I said tasteful earlier. It's just really tastefully done, and I admire those little dashes of cymbals that weren't ham-handed at all, and added just enough little bit of accent and texture in certain bits of the song when to me it seemed called for. So yeah, this is another interesting track by Dumptruck. I enjoyed a lot what I heard here. I will say that so I'm listening to this, and I don't want to make this about REM. I'll discuss this a little bit with John since he's my or he is the sort of resident REM guy, as well as just he was much more active and a fan as it was happening of the jangle pop and college rock movement. And I don't know if there's another subgenre of music that is more dominated or seemingly defined by one band, even though there are others. Clearly, there are other contemporaries that go along with that genre. I mean, we've done, thanks to you guys and John, because he offered up Dumptruck, but this now the second Dumptruck track that we've listened to, offered up by one of you lovely folks out there, as well as like Let's Active. There were obviously other bands that were part of this movement, but I can't think of, like, you think of grunge, I think in America, I think of the big four. There were four big bands, and there were plenty of others, but they were the genre was kind of defined by, or really bolstered by, those big four bands out of Seattle. With this genre, it seems to be like the first band and most dominant band that comes up when this genre is talked about is the guys from Athens. And if it wasn't for this channel, I don't know if Dumptruck would have come on my radar, or Let's Active for that matter. But REM did, and it wasn't just the later stuff. I know for a fact that REM, while they did grow to greater heights of popularity when they shifted their sound a little bit, that those first few albums really cemented quite a large following for them and afforded them the ability to kind of move on from there or spread their wings and do other stuff. But yeah, it's just interesting to me because to me, every genre should be defined or represented by more than one band. Understanding that there were more than one band when there was more than one band when it came to jangle pop and college rock. It just seems to be a subgenre really defined or dominated by one act, even though there were others. Maybe you guys can set me straight. I was somewhere between a zygote and a toddler when this all was happening, so it's more of an observation and not like a proclamation of truth. I'm willing to be corrected on that, but just something that I seem to have noticed. I don't know. But regardless, this is a Dumptruck reaction, and it was a great song with some lovely instrumentation. It sounded like the winter stuff was metaphorical. Maybe John can help me out with that. I wasn't able to catch all the lyrics, but I did catch a decent amount, and there were some really interesting pointed ones in there as well, particularly that one about sacrificing freedom, or destroying things in the name of freedom. Interesting stuff. Yeah, great sound these guys do have. Let's discuss it further by going back and chatting it up with John.
Eartha Kitt, he's back. So you've listened to Winter by Dumptruck. I have to confess, there's a song called Winter by The Fall that is one of my favourite songs of theirs, and I always think of that song first rather than this one. So scrub that, get that out of my head. So you've got to listen to Dumptruck, Winter. What do you reckon?
Yeah. It was a really interesting listen. I loved, just generally speaking, and I'll probably go into a little bit further detail as I go on. The way the guitars worked together in this one was really lovely, and the way that they're produced as well, so that they're deployed sort of one in each can, at least during the parts where they most kind of mesh. I thought that was great. So interesting dynamics between the two guitars, and some really great bass work here too. Like almost to the where it grays, it like tiptoes in that gray area between rhythm and melody at points throughout the song. Um, but also at times doing very judicious rhythmic things with like single note resonance that kind of like create this under like over top of which the guitars can do. They're mostly arpeggioed motifs throughout this entire song. I mean, there's a lot of picking going on in this thing. So all of that worked really well together to create a great soundscape. And also, probably the unsung, and kind of rightfully so for this track, hero of the song is the drummer. Because there's like, again, I'll use the word judicious. The little simple cymbal flourishes at time that adds this lovely bit of texture and dimension is really good as well. And when spoiler alert, when he comes in on the chorus, it really gives the song new life and adds this interesting play between the dynamics of the verse, more gentle and picky, to this more, upbeat, in your face, rhythmically driven portion of the song. So everybody did their part throughout this track, and I really appreciated that. It begins with some of that aforementioned pretty, seemingly semi-flanged affected picked guitar, which is soon accompanied by these tasteful teases, I think at least once, of that distant cascading cymbal sound, and some really rich bass notes in there too. The singer begins to deliver the first verse, and the lyrics validate the title choice for the song as he depicts a snow-covered scene. During this portion, I begin to hear what I believe are like, for the probably it could have happened before this, but the first time it stood out to me were these like synth or keyboard notes that were kind of neat beneath the musical surface there. Then, per the lyrical content, it appears as though the sun has come out and now the melting snow is turning into a river. I think I caught an allusion to in there. Just before the 1 minute mark, the drums proper drop in for the first time in a pronounced fashion. And it was just like I mentioned before, because of that dynamic shift, it was like a shot in the arm of some vitamin B. Like the song got energy and life, almost like spring coming in the wake of winter, which I thought was really cool. This shot of life, I come to realize, like during this portion, and the chorus really does set it off. Now, as I went back into the verse, I heard it there as well, but man, the chorus made it stark. I am definitely hearing REM in this as well. I mean, this chorus screams of that cut from that cloth. So yeah, that made me kind of smile and gave it an air of familiarity. The singer declares that in the winter everything is different, and while he is declaring this, I could pick up some more lovely arpeggio guitar picking. This time it's a bit higher and brighter, as well as some nice bass work, which also kind of is working higher on the neck. Sort of not mimicking, but taking the cue from the guitarist that this is what we're doing and it's okay. So that sounded really great. Now we're sort of downshifting into this, like, in this portion, a very small little musical post-chorus bit before we end up back in the verse. In the wake of the chorus, the two guitars can be heard really commingling together, like I mentioned earlier. Their notes intertwining and connecting like strands of DNA, forming a double helix. They were really in sync during this part. I think I can catch the singer deliver the line, "Yeah, man can destroy everything in existence under the pretense of saving freedom," which I thought was a really profound statement from all of this sort of like allusions and probably metaphors to winter or the changing of winter. Here we have this very black and white, non-metaphorical, quite literal statement, which resonated with me, and I just thought it was great, and definitely caught my attention. So this gives way to another strike of the drums and a subsequent chorus, and it's at this point I'm really like I'm just admiring the shift from the gentle verse to the more lively chorus. And this isn't, I don't know if this predates or maybe runs parallel to, but isn't exactly doing the same thing that what would become grunge was doing at this time, where you have these dynamics between softer verse and louder chorus. We've talked about it forever on this channel. So this just seemed to be a less dirty version of that kind of happening. So I thought that was kind of cool. Finally, they revisit that tranquil bit of post-chorus music one final time before tying a nice neat bow on the track as it comes to an end. As they do this sort of extended bit before that, there's these lovely cymbal splashes, and the one guitar is, I wouldn't call it a lead, but is doing this other melodic motif that he had yet to do to this point. This is sort of where I was describing that sort of commingling of the two. That part, probably this part where it shines the most, is right here where this is happening. So yeah, it was a really fun track to listen to. It wasn't anything that I haven't heard before, but what I will say is that it was just, it didn't break any new ground, but as it relates to the style I heard deployed here, it kind of opened my eyes to yet another one of these like REM contemporaries. Obviously, in this case, opened it a bit more for me because I'd only listened to the one track. So that's always a welcome and pleasant experience. And I think that I had this revelatory moment or an epiphany as I was listening to it. And I can't think of a subgenre or niche subgenre like jangle pop or jangle pop slash college rock that is more dominated by one band by association as REM is to it. I mean, even here in the States, grunge has the big four. They have like the Mount Rushmore of the grunge bands out of Seattle. So there's at least four you can name. And this again is only my supposition. I didn't live it and I don't know it, you know what I mean? But from the outside looking in and from listening to people who have always, talked about the genre, it's always REM. And, it's not like a handful of names. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing when I've heard two bands now that sound, maybe not, and it's all subjective, maybe not better than some of the stuff REM was putting out, but at least like damn close to the point where like, I don't think Soundgarden is as good as Nirvana. But I know that if I'm going to name some of the biggest bands of the genre, I'm naming Soundgarden among the other two or three. So it's just one of those things where I just found that kind of interesting. And maybe you can fill in gaps or tell me that there's actually quite an array of other bands that deserve to be among the first names listed when you're talking about that genre. But that was just something that stood out to me. But this isn't about REM. This is a Dumptruck reaction. So I realize the irony of being like, no one brings up Dumptruck when you're talking about Jangle Pop, and I'm just dominating the conversation with REM stuff. So, but this was great. I love the dynamics between the two guitars. I love the way the rhythm section like held their own, and even with the bass colored outside the line a little bit without making it like about him. Like it wasn't like listening to Flea on the Red Hot Chili Peppers where you're like, all right, man, we know you're good. Like you can rate it in. So yeah, it was a great listen and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. You got me thinking now about different like subgenres and bands that dominate. That's for another time, but I can feel the wheels turning. You're kind of right about the jangle pop stroke college. I mean, even that podcast, we were talking about before, the one where they go through the album.
Yes.
The life of the album, is it called? I can't remember. But the Feelies were talking about that, and you wouldn't expect them, but they said about how REM paved the way in their relentless touring across America for other sort of college bands to get audiences that they would have never got outside of the big conurbations that they would always play, So things like that just affect them. There's no doubt that that sound. This is contemporary, though. Before I carry on, just to say, obviously Bradley Stone dropped this in the episode previous, Dumptruck, Back Where I Belong. I went through. There's not a huge amount about them around, but I went through it fairly comprehensively in that. So I'll put the link in below. So I won't ramble on too much doing the same stuff because there is only so much you can say about Dumptruck. this is sort of contemporary of that time. See, I put this sound in around in between sort of Fables of the Reconstruction and Licensed Pageant, and that's 85, 86, and this is 86. So it all fits with the sound of the development. Doesn't sound like really early or late REM. It's that pocket of where
Right.
they're from. So Dumptruck. I don't know how many times we mentioned REM, but Dumptruck. So formed in Boston, Massachusetts, nowhere near Athens, Georgia, in 1983 by Seth Tiven and Kirk Swan. And they're labeled indie rock and garage rock, and we would say jangle stroke college rock as well. So this is the side A closer from the album Positively, 1986. I believe Back Where It Belongs is side A opener. So we've had the first and last of side A. There you
we
go. And it's a good indication actually of the quality of this album. It is really good. And it's just nice because it's a slightly different sound to that sort of Back Where It Belongs as well. It's a different aspects of them, but still of their sound. So
Yeah.
just a reminder of personnel. Kirk Swan, guitars, vocals. Seth Tiven, guitars, vocals. Steve Mitchener, bass, friend of the channel. And Sean Devlin, drums. That lineup would change, but and also Don Dixon, who worked with certain bands out of Athens, Georgia. Producer, keyboards, and backing vocals. So yeah, it is a really good album. All Music, their sort of review of this, I think they gave it sort of 4 stars out of 5 or whatever, but they said the band's main protagonists, guitar and vocal men, Seth Tiven and Kirk Swan, improved on the raw and antsy television / REM stylings of their debut album, Deeds for Dumptruck 983, with tighter songs, a bit more studio sheen, and more pop elements. I think it was really interesting. I got this one from Rate Your Music. So it's from a user rather than some idiot who's paid to be opinionated. So the user is Dusty Hands. Don't want to ask how he got his dust on his hands, but anyway, we'll gloss over. Yeah. Although from Boston, the music sound of Dumptruck is quite fitting to that of the somewhat country / folksy / Dylan inspired / psychedelic / Birdsian sounds known as jangle of REM, Pylon and company coming out of Athens, Georgia in the same era of the 80s. Yeah, fair enough. This is definitely not an album for prancing about with friends. Undoubtedly, as the song titles of Autumn Light and Winter indicate, it is more for the colder, self-reflected times in life. Overall, it is another example of the quality of the neglected American underground sound in the 1980s, which is fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you would have... Yeah, anyway. As I said, for another time, we're going to that. So, I had to listen and get the lyrics myself because they're not listed anywhere. This was a fairly easy task, to be fair, because it's pretty clear, and I don't think I got anything wrong. But you know, anyway,
yeah. The only time I missed lyrics was when I was mesmerized by like the 2 guitars or some interesting bass shit. You know what I mean? So,
but so they go. The snow falls heavily and forms a white blanket on the ground, only to be invaded by footsteps. The temperature warms to change the state of the snow, turning the blanket into a river. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, different. Nothing in man's power can prevent this from happening. Not all the technology, minds, and research. Yeah, man can destroy everything in existence under the pretense of saving freedom. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, different. Guitar break, I put in here. And then it's the chorus 3 more times. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, everything is different. In the winter, different. So yeah, it's a really nice... It is a mood piece, this one. And it ebbs and flows as well, which is just really pretty as well. And a nice atmosphere to it. So just to recap, I'm pretty sure I went over this before, but just to put this in context. So after this album's release, friend of the channel, Steve Mitchener, left the band. They went heavily touring, and sort of apparently a grueling 3-month tour. Just before Christmas, came back, and Kirk Swan and Steve's replacement bassist, Michael Spike Pridden, also left. And they pretty much thought that was the end of the band, but the record company said, no, have some more money. And they went, all right then. And so Tiven and Devlin recruited a replacement guitarist and a replacement bass player for their third album, For the Country, which apparently is really good, but I'm not familiar with it. I should be, but I'm not. And that was released in 87. Highly positive reviews. Shortly after then, we definitely went over this bit. The band then discovered that their record label, Big Time, was bouncing checks all over the place and trying to sell their contract to Phonogram Records without their knowledge. And it did turn out that their contract had expired and they had not re-signed. So it wasn't their contract to sell anyway.
Jesus.
So they thought, we'll speak to Phonographs direct. And then Big Time sued them. And they had 3 years of litigation and counter-suing. The band won, by that time there was nothing left of Big Time to pay out any compensation, so they were buggered. Tiven, the band split in 91. Tiven moved to Austin, Texas, and became a computer programmer, I believe. And then some local musicians said, hey, let's get the band back together, just like in Blues Brothers. And they did, and decided touring locally, and then they ended up recording a further 4 studio albums. And Tiven did 3 solo albums. So they're still sort of knocking around to this day. But yeah, so, carried on doing the stuff with clearly talented individuals. And just to mention, friend of the channel, Steve Mitchener, bass player on this, he dropped a comment on the Big Dipper episode we did. Who's also a member of that as well. And I believe for a while there, they on their Facebook page, they put a link through to that episode from our channel. So,
nice.
So Steve, if this reaches you, welcome to drop a comment here as well. Really appreciate you guys, definitely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's about as much as I've got on Dumptruck. Really good band. And definitely of that time, it's a really nice indicator of other music apart from
Yes, exactly. And the more of those that there are, please throw them our way, because that was the epiphany. Like, I need to broaden my horizons in this subgenre, because like I knew some REM tracks from that period. You obviously introduced me to a whole bunch more, and further reason to go dig into them. But I would love to hear some other bands. Like, I've heard a little bit of Pylon and that one track by Let's Active. And, we've got 2 Dumptrucks now. But there's got to be, in order to have a subgenre, you need more than a handful of bands. So I'd be interested to hear more from that era and that sound.
Yeah, definitely. I've got some ideas straight away. But folks out there, tell us what you think. Please hit the like button on this and drop some comments. Yeah, please do tell us what you think about this and Dumptruck, obviously, but also any other recommendations that you may have for this genre, as it were, college rock, jangle pop from the USA in the 80s. There's some good stuff out there, definitely. Love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody to support the channel. And likewise, with this Friday episodes and recommendations, drop comments anywhere in any episode. We'll do our best to add to the list. We have a small team of underage workers in each of our basements, constantly updating the list, and then they knit it out for us to then go over and perhaps do the odd song here or there.
Reminds me, actually, I have to feed them, so
Yeah, only once a week. But yeah, so please do drop a comment if you've got a suggestion. We'd love to hear from you. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
we'll see you later, guys.